Hey guys, welcome to Edinburgh. We are about to start off on a literary tour and our first destination is right behind me. See, we are headed to the Writers' Museum. This tiny little square tucked away behind the main Royal Mile is called Marker Square, and the building here in front of you is Writers' Museum. This building hosts an impressive collection of memorabilia from famous authors like Robert Burns and Walter Scott and R.L. Stevenson. It's got the original writing desk from Burns's place, and it's got some manuscripts from Stevenson as well.
Unfortunately, it's closed now because of coronavirus, but I'm sure we'll come to Edinburgh again.
And even the stairs are paved with sayings and inscriptions from famous authors and writers, right?
Yeah.
My favorite one is here.
So here's a writing from R.L. Stevenson, which says, "There are no stars so lovely as Edinburgh's street lamps." Robert Louis Stevenson, 1850 to 1891. He belonged to a family of engineers. Could be the reason why he was so enamored with lights and lamps. Yes, his father was a lighthouse engineer or something of that sort. Anyway, we'll be seeing his childhood home soon.
If you notice behind me, that's a Scott monument. It's dedicated to Sir Walter Scott. It's 61 meters tall. And it's probably the tallest monument ever dedicated to any author or any writer on earth. It's built in the Gothic style. So you can see, you can make out gargoyles and gibbons etched on its surface. And it's even got a museum underneath it. On level 1, it's got a museum which is closed temporarily to coronavirus.
So that's Sir Walter Scott. This is in Princess Street Garden. The garden itself is very pretty. It's right next to the main train station of Edinburgh, which unsurprisingly, being just next to Sir Walter Scott's monument, is called Waverley. And the view from here is fantastic too. You can have a panoramic view of the very pretty, beautiful city of Edinburgh. So even if you're transiting through Edinburgh, I suggest you get off at the station, spend a few minutes in the garden, and you'll have a glimpse, a sneak peek into what the city has to offer. We are now going to cross the street to head to our next destination. So behind me, the red door you'll see, number 17 Harriet Row, used to be the childhood home of Robert Louis Stevenson, writer of classic novels like Treasure Island and Kidnapped, and many other poems too. One of the poems, in fact, Vikram and I read when we were back in school, The Lamplighter. So Robert Louis Stevenson used to be quite a sickly child. He suffered from respiratory problems, and there are some hypotheses on what kind of chronic lung condition he may have had. But anyway, so he used to spend a lot of time indoors, and you wonder if he actually sat at that window and watched the lamplighter, like this lamp, and fantasized about being a lamplighter when he grew up and became strong. In fact, here, right at the bottom of the lamp, is a little plaque with the inscription of the last stanza of the Lamplighter. "For we are very lucky with the lamp before the door, and Leary stops to light it as he lights so many more. And oh, before you hurry by with ladder and with light, oh Leary, see a little child and nod to him tonight." This is a private property now, so I don't want to disturb the inhabitants, but if you apply a little bit of imagination, you probably can see a young little boy standing right next to the window, watching with amazement a lamplighter light up the light in front of his home.
So we are in front of a pub called the Conan Oil. This pub is right opposite to Piccadilly Place, where Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was born. The entire area has been redeveloped into new houses and hotels, so there is no sign of the original building. But there is a statue, a larger-than-life statue of Sherlock Holmes, his creation, in the middle of the square, in the middle of this roundabout, which unfortunately we can't see now because of ongoing construction.
Yeah, so it has been temporarily removed to aid the construction work. But this pub is called the Conan Doyle, and apparently Sir Arthur Conan Doyle used to actually physically visit this very often, and he still frequents it in his ghostly form. There are a few Sherlock Holmes memorabilia here. As you can see, the deerstalker and his tartan hip flask. And I also got to learn that Sherlock Holmes is the most portrayed literary human character in film and television ever. According to Google, the most portrayed non-human character is Count Dracula.
So right behind me, you can see a pub, and this is where Robert Burns stayed the first time he visited Edinburgh on invitation. By the time he came to Edinburgh, he was already a famous poet in his own right, and the reason he was invited here was to introduce a second edition of his book of poems. And Pritha wants to read out some of Burns' lines.
No, I don't. Sorry. I don't.
You want me to read out?
I want you.
This is what you want me to say to you.
Exactly. This is what I want.
Oh, my Lou is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my Lou is like the melody that's sweetly played in tune. So fair art thou, my bonny lass. So deep in Louvre am I. And I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry.
Promise. So we are about to reach the last destination of this tour, and as you can see, it's no longer walking. We have got a car now. We have rented it because after this we'll be setting off to the Isle of Skye. The last destination is going to be Burns Monument. Obviously there's no prize for guessing in whose honor it has been constructed. Before we reach, just a quick mention, and I have to say this here, that my introduction to English prose and poetry has been through my mother, who was a student of English literature. In our home there used to be a copy of a book called The Golden Treasury, which is a book of English poems. I believe it's from her graduation days, and I used to be quite enamored with the lines. I used to read it so often, and I believe it's because of The Golden Treasury that I have grown up to be more of a poetry person than a prose person. What do you think, Vikram? What about you?
I think I would like to attribute to both my parents the credit of imbibing in me a love for literature, and English literature in particular. From my childhood, I've grown up with novels and stories like Kidnapped, and Treasure Island used to be my favorite novel. So yeah.
Yeah, Vikram used to be quite a bookworm. He used to spend all his free time with books, didn't you?
Totally.
Yeah, so this is the Burns Monument. We won't get off the car, but this is the monument which was built in honor of Robert Burns, the national bard of Scotland. Beautiful. So guys, that concludes this video, but this is not all of the literary tour. Of course, we cannot imagine Edinburgh's literary contribution without including J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. I know it's technically part of children's literature, but it has an immense contribution nonetheless. That, however, is a separate video. I'm going to attach the link up here, and I really do hope that if you have even a remote interest in Harry Potter or children's literature, you'll watch it too. Bye.